Hello, this is Matt Pullin, and welcome back to Stonewall Legacy. Today I'm going to discuss the mainline Stonewall with 6 Queen C7. So, Knight C6, which is the main line, and F4. And Black has a couple moves. The most common move in this position is Bishop to E7, followed by a quick castle's kingside. Possibly with B6 and Bishop B7. But we're going to look at Queen C7 now, and I think this is a very good move. Possibly the best move in this position. And the point is indirect pressure on F4. It's also a sound developing move in itself. So I'm going to follow the game Van Vliet versus Znosko-Borovsky from 1907. This is the third game in the back of My System by Aron Nimzowitch, which is the best book on chess ever written. I would definitely recommend reading it if you haven't already. So this game went Knight G to F3, and I think that this is already a mistake. Black shows his idea by capturing here. And now Nimzowitch thinks that E captures is the best capture here, even though it loses a pawn to queen takes on F4. We'll look at that line a little later. Let's say White plays C takes and holds on to his F4 pawn. The following maneuver is very important to remember. Black plays bishop to, knight to B4, attacking the bishop on D3, and the bishop has to go to B1, otherwise knight C2 check. And now Black plays bishop to D7, and it looks like White is just going to kick the knight out of there. But Black has this in-between move, rook to C8, and if pawn takes knight, then queen takes bishop is good for Black. So instead, White castled to protect that with his rook on F1, and now Black played the bishop to B5, attacking White's rook on F1. And if White takes the knight here, then Black just takes on F1 and then takes the bishop on C1. So the rook goes to E1, and now Black played knight C2, which is a fork of White's rooks. So White has to take, and after captures, Black has achieved a rook posted on the 7th rank, and he still has a pair of bishops to go with it. So White was sunk in this position very quickly. So keep that in mind. Don't allow the knight to come into B4 followed by Black's dominating the C file. So really, C takes is almost losing by force. Nimzowitch recommends E takes as a better capture, even though it allows queen takes F4. And White's idea here is knight to C4. Now Nimzowitch gives this line going queen C7, knight C to E5, bishop D6, queen E2, and says White has full compensation for a pawn. In fact, he's better. And I agree with him. White has solid control over E5. He can castle kingside, and his rooks on E1 and F1 will control the kingside and F file. And the bishop on C1 doesn't have any pawns in the way, so it can develop and pressure Black's game freely. So really, I think White has full compensation for the pawn here. His knights are in good positions. He's controlling the game at this point. So the problem I have with Nimzowicz's assessment is he gives queen to G4, an important alternative for Black, since knight to E5 would allow queen takes G2. But in this position, he says knight E3 exclamation point. And frankly, I disagree with him in this position, and so does Crafty. After queen to H5, I don't see anything good about White's position. He's just down a pawn here. And I analyzed this with my computer, and I've come to the conclusion that White is busted. I mean, there's really no way to trap the Black queen. I mean, if H3, then Black just dumps the knight into E4. So that's what I think of this. I think this whole line is bad for White. So the mistake is knight G to F3. And white should, according to Nimzowitch, choose an alternate development of his pieces, with knight to h3 followed by queen to f3. And this is a fairly little explored possibility. But I think it makes sense. Queen to f3 is seen anyway in the Stonewall sometimes to prevent black from sinking a piece into e4. And the knight coming out to h3, it allows white's rook on f1 to have more immediate influence into the game. Plus, this knight on f2 knight on h3 can often drop back to f2. So let's load a game where this happens. Paste game from clipboard. So this is Baraganov versus Karpov from 1999. And white gets into a Stonewall with kind of an unusual move order. And now knight to h3, bishop d6, castles to guard the f-pawn with the rook. What black castles? Then queen to f3. So this is white's plan of development. Black drops his knight back to e7, and white drops his knight back to f2. And after knight d7, white played knight to g4, and then he brought that knight into e5 to achieve the typical Stonewall attacking setup. So really, this is a position that could occur out of the mainline Stonewall, but we just took several more moves to reach it. So that is my suggestion. If queen to c7 in the mainline, then white should play knight to h3 with the alternate developing plan of queen to f3 castles, knight to f2, etc. Well, I hope this has given you some insight into what to avoid in the mainline Stonewall with 6 queen to c7. Also, if bishop to d6, also with pressure on the f-pawn, I recommend the same thing, knight to h3, followed by queen f3 and castles. So, I hope you enjoyed this video. Only a few more videos left in this series, and thank you for watching.